we need to integrate our teams and our work from research all the way to commercial, including development. And we thought we need to bring those teams together, so we decided to realign oncology on the one hand and what we call biopharmaceuticals on the other hand, which is essentially cardiovascular, diabetes, and respiratory disease. So actually the realignment is more a consequence of our success to really keep us focused and moving very quickly. You know, when you do well, now is not the time to relax. China is doing well, now is not the time to relax. It's a time to speed up even more.
In 2018, AstraZeneca broke out China separately for the first time in its earnings. Sales were $3.8 billion. And this year, first-half sales hit $2.4 billion, making AstraZeneca the second largest foreign drug maker in China.
A very interesting year. I mean, for the company, we're doing incredibly well. We returned to growth. Q2 was a fantastic quarter for us. China, in particular, did incredibly well. We had a growth rate of about 44% in second quarter, so we are doing very well. The company overall is returning to growth. Our pipeline is progressing, so a great year. But also interesting, there are so many changes and around us in the world.
China is now about 17% of your annual sales total. Where do you see it going forward? It's
almost 20%, actually. And I think it will continue increasing. And there is no reason why it couldn't be 25-30% of our total sales. And in fact, the challenge for our team today is to really become as big as the US. And as you know, Chinese people are very competitive. Our team is incredibly competitive. We have a fantastic team. And their goal is really to catch up with our US colleagues.
China's innovative drug approvals have sped up as part of the government's Healthy China 2030 policy. A McKinsey survey shows in the last 4 years, China progressed on all major indicators, including regulations, talent, and funding. That's why many global biopharmaceutical firms are expanding in China. Japan's Takeda relocated its Asia Development Center to Shanghai. Sanofi is building an emerging market business unit in China. In May, Pfizer launched the global headquarters of its generic drug unit in Shanghai. The China growth bet is becoming more compelling.
Government in China is more and more open to the outside world, and we even launched a law that protects foreign investment in China, and approving new drug much faster and providing access of new medicine to patients also faster.
China's top killer disease by far is lung cancer. Here at the Integrated Lung Cancer Center, the approach is multimodal. From screening vehicles that try to catch the disease early to AI radiology, teleconsultation that reduces the diagnostic time, and precision medicine. Can the technology reduce China's rural healthcare gap? And how does all this tie in with AstraZeneca's focus therapy areas? The 50-50 joint venture lab with the China Future Investment Fund is a sign of things to come in China's drug-making innovation. Scientists are encouraged to own stakes, and the culture is like that of a startup. So far, this 2-year-old lab has developed 7 to 8 clinical stage drugs. So is this localized R&D going to help AstraZeneca go to the next level in China?
I think so, because now we are developing new drugs now in China for Chinese patients and launch ahead of the US and Europe and Japan. So in the future, it's in China for China and in China for global.
AstraZeneca is sharpening the focus on 7 main therapy areas, including cardiovascular, renal and metabolism, oncology, and other areas.
2 reasons. First of all, if you look at what are the diseases that kill the largest number of people worldwide, you will find cardiovascular disease, you will find diabetes, which is related to cardiovascular disease and kidney disease. And then you will find cancer, of course. Everybody would understand that. What people don't think so much about is asthma, COPD, asthma and chronic bronchitis.
I have a bit of asthma.
Asthma kills people. So you can have mild asthma and you live with it, but you can also have severe asthma. And if you have severe asthma that you're not controlled, you can have a severe exacerbation. You're rushed to the hospital and you might die. running out of air, asphyxiating on the way to the hospital. So those are three of the biggest killers, if you will, in the world. So there's a big unmet need, number one. Number two, in the emerging markets, the big issues today are in cardiovascular, diabetes, and respiratory. And the last reason, the third reason, is we had a lot of history in those diseases. Like everything, it requires doctors to be open-minded and re-challenge themselves and learn. And it's exactly what we have to do in companies too. It's also people paying a little bit, so they are measured in the way they use healthcare resources. It makes the doctor's life more interesting, maybe to communicate with them, right?
Whether it's about your education, the home you live in, or the items you buy, your money has a story to tell. Because every business story is a human story. Global Business.
The world economy as we know it is about to change. Global Business reports highlight emerging markets, developing countries, and dynamic sectors worldwide. We feature top analysts and newsmakers to provide perspectives on every facet of business. From an on-the-ground perspective, we provide you with balanced and objective assessments. Fast, sharp, and insightful. Global Business. Only on CGTN.
Healthcare providers?
I think it's a great question, and I think we have to evolve the way we operate as pharmaceutical companies with the emergence of digital technologies and artificial intelligence. And the reason is that having a drug is one thing, but you really also need to make sure people are diagnosed, and you need to make sure that they take their drug properly so that they are better controlled, and of course they feel better, they have a better health, but also they go less to the hospital, and they cost less money. So if you want to help patients treat their disease better, and if you want to also save money overall from a healthcare viewpoint, I think you really need to integrate digital technologies and pharmaceuticals. And that will help you diagnose disease better.
Technology is not only changing what it means to be a pharmaceutical company, it's also redefining the doctor's role. But does artificial intelligence mean doctors will be out of their jobs?
I think doctors will have to be prepared to communicate with their patients in different ways. I think doctors will have to be open-minded because patients are a lot more sophisticated today than before. You know, before people would go to their doctor and listen and do exactly what the doctor was saying. Now they ask questions, and sometimes
and they Google if the doctor's
Google
right.
and they challenge. So doctors who are actually not open-minded to this kind of interaction, I think are going to struggle because patients want to have this interaction. And in fact, to a great extent, I would argue it makes the doctor's life more interesting because it engages them in a discussion with their patient, right? So I think doctors will have to be open-minded to using digital tools to manage the healthcare of their patients, maybe to communicate with them, right?
And what about jobs in general in the healthcare industry in the future? We know a lot of the repetitive jobs might go, such as radiologist, but there might even be a skills gap in, say, gene and cell therapy.
I think, first of all, doctors in many cases should think of themselves as what you might call the augmented doctor, right? So if I'm a pathologist today, tissue testing is exploding for cancer, but other diseases, and soon enough we realize there are not enough pathologists to do all this work. So, and then maybe they are not always as reliable because they get tired. They are human beings. So maybe AI and visual tools can help them process more and be more accurate. So I really think that, like everything, it requires doctors to be open-minded and re-challenge themselves and learn. And it's exactly what we have to do in companies too. If we don't continue evolving and learning and changing, then we fall behind, right?
Doctors are just one part of the public healthcare system puzzle. With more expensive care, ageing populations, and stretched public finances, the challenges on public healthcare are global and growing. What role does the pharmaceutical industry play in healthcare systems, and what makes an ideal system from a drug maker's perspective?
The one thing I'm sure is that, well, it depends how you look at it, right? I mean, if you look at it as a government and you look at population...
Okay, which large country has the best performing healthcare system?
So the question is...
It's easy to work with a small country.
Yeah, but you have two aspects to healthcare, right? You have one aspect which is the health of your population, of your country as a whole, right? And then you have the other aspect is your own health. So if you look at it from your own health viewpoint and you have a good insurance, the best system is in the US. If you look at it from the viewpoint of how does the country allocate resources to keep patients, populations in good health, it's not the US.
The life expectancy is going down.
Yes, but because some people are, because of drugs, I mean, you know, you've heard about the opioid crisis in the US, and also because a lot of people don't have good health insurance. So I think the US is not the perfect system, that's for sure. I think a good system in the world is Switzerland, where you're able to manage costs, but also give most people access, but also give most people or everybody access to good medicines. But, you know, this universal healthcare concept in the US, I don't think is the solution. If you look at it in Europe, many countries have systems where patients wait for years to get access to innovative medicines. We have new products that have been available in the US and treating patients for 2 years. European patients are still waiting.
And China's catching up.
And I think China's catching up, and China is so far also a good model. And I think at the end of the day, you have to have a model that is a mixture of government funding, private funding. You know what it is, when people pay nothing at all, then they abuse the system, unfortunately. Not everybody, but some.
There's no incentive to keep
and
healthy.
There's no incentive to really try to be measured with the way you use the healthcare system. So I think you have to have a little bit of mixture of government, maybe private insurance, and also people paying a little bit. Not too much so that they are protected, but a little bit so they are measured in the way they use healthcare resources. We had 12 important clinical studies reshaping many diseases. 2021, yes, we're on track, absolutely. You don't start something like this, just stop halfway through. I mean, so I don't plan to leave anytime soon.
Each day, there are millions of stories. Each one can open new perspectives, new possibilities. Wherever you look, we are there. To see, discover, explore. We put the pieces together to find what really matters to you, all around the world, all around the clock. Our reporters are at home across the globe. From our headquarters in Beijing and production centers in Washington, Nairobi, and London, China Global Television Network. Stories from across the globe, reaching people across the globe. CGTN. See the difference.
Given the nature of the pharmaceutical business and the need to engage with governments, how do politics come into play for drug makers?
And I mean, politics are important in the sense of governments. What I think is really special right now at this point in time in many countries around the world is the sort of new dynamics that are establishing themselves that stem from the fact that part of the population is feeling that they are left behind. Nobody has found a solution to this, but that is really a fundamental problem that China is not experiencing today, because China is in this full swing, growing and developing.
If you work harder, you can still.
Yes, and you have lots of
life.
poor people in China, of course, but those people still can grow and develop, and their kids can do better. But in the Western world, economies are stagnant. And as a result, a lot of people can't see any hope for themselves or their kids. And that's a big problem.
In 2018, after 6 years in which revenues had fallen by more than a third, AstraZeneca returned to growth as its pipeline-driven transformation continues.
There are so many exciting things in our pipeline. In the last 4 months, to start with, in the last 4 months we had 12 important clinical studies reading out, very important clinical studies that are really shaping many diseases. Out of 12, 11 were positive. Only one didn't read out positively. So, we are really excited, and we had readouts in heart failure. For instance, we have a product called Farxiga for heart failure. We presented the results at the European Society of Cardiology, which is the biggest cardiology congress, 2 weeks ago. Actually, transformative for the treatment of heart failure. We've had results in ovarian cancer, lung cancer, asthma, COPD, chronic bronchitis. So, very exciting. Lots of new developments. And here in China in particular, we have a product called roxadustat for kidney disease. And we obtained approval here in China, first country in the world. It's a big change because usually China comes after US and Europe. This time China leads the world.
China's pharmaceutical market is the second largest in the world after America. The global market is around $1.2 trillion, seen at growing 4 to 5% per year. Will faster growth in China help Pascal fulfill his promise of taking annual revenues to $45 billion by 2023?
First of all, as a reminder, the 45 billion is actually more like 41 billion at today currency rates because the dollar has gone up.
So a bit of rounding, right? 40.
So 40, 41, yes, we're on track, absolutely. We still have to keep growing at a fast clip over the next 3-4 years, but we're on track.
Investors are concerned Pascal would not finish what he set out to do, with media reports that he may leave or retire. He says he won't.
Interesting question. We for some reason, and maybe this is because of our history and our journey, and we've attracted a lot of speculation.
It's the British tabloids.
I can tell you all of that.
Sometimes when you're FTSE 100 company.
Yes, someone told me one day there are more newspapers in the UK than companies, so of course they write a lot about you.
Yeah.
But lots of speculation, and I can tell you a lot of it has been totally unsubstantiated and incorrect. So I don't have a plan to leave. I don't have a plan to retire. As I said one day, I'm not a quitter. You don't start something like this to just stop halfway through. So we still have some way to go before we can say we've accomplished what we wanted to accomplish. And I've got a great team of people. I enjoy what I do, so I don't plan to leave anytime soon.
In what has been a career-long battle to find medicines against diseases, the fighter from Paris has more rounds in him yet.